Republican leaders, with the exception of John Kasich, have been careful not to criticize President Trump. But the president's zero-tolerance policy of prosecuting illegal border crossers and separating them from their children proved too much. The images of children in detention centers along the Mexican border in Texas brought public outcry and shifting stories from the president and his administration. Not surprisingly, Kasich was among the first to criticize, calling the policy insane.
You'd like to see the administration say the solution to this problem at the border is not to separate families and to create conditions that are intolerable.
Congressman Steve Stivers, who is in charge of getting Republicans elected to Congress this year, called on the administration to stop needlessly separating children from their parents. The usually cautious Rob Portman called for an end of the practice. Note he pointed to the Justice Department and not directly at President Trump. Attorney General Mike DeWine, who was running for governor, hedged even more. Listen closely to the last part of his statement.
We need a comprehensive immigration reform. The laws need to be followed as far as who comes into the United States and who does not. However, this great country should not be in the position of separating children from their parents. I just gave you my statement. The United States should not be in the position of separating parents from children.
Terry, we should not be in the position of separating children from their parents, not President Trump shouldn't be separating children from their parents. Why so cautious?
Well, the truth of the matter is the Republican Party is divided over this issue and has been going back to the late 1980s when the last major immigration reform went through. Because part of the Republican Party wants cheaper labor, whether it's farms or businesses, and other Republicans are worried about what it does to the impact on costs of operating schools, health care, other things. So there's a divided Republican Party, just like a lot of Americans are divided.
He wants reform. He said he wants reform, but he wouldn't go as far as to say President Trump was wrong here.
Well, part of it is
mistakes were made. That's kind of what that sounds like. Mistakes were made. He didn't make the mistake. Mistakes were made.
Well, bungle of all time. I mean, in history, the chronicle of history of Trump, I mean, he's had a bunch of things, but this is the biggest bungle I've ever seen.
Well, Sam, he adjusted and changed, and you'd think people would say, well, thank you.
He really didn't adjust and change. He put some Band-Aids over it, and he doesn't know how he's going to get those kids back with their families. He hasn't figured that out yet.
Well, but part of the divide, you've got a Congress that says the legislative branch should be stronger. Then Chuck Schumer says, well, don't pay attention to Congress.
Don't blame this on the Democrats. The Democrats didn't have anything to do with it.
The Democrats in the first 2 years.
I was going to get back to DeWine. I mean, he's running for governor of Ohio as a Republican. And as a Republican, you criticize President Trump at your own peril.
Yep.
You know, there's half the Republicans in Ohio support President Trump, maybe more support President Trump. So if he goes out and attacks President Trump personally, that could come back to haunt him. That's, I think, why you saw him hedging. That was the most painful statement I've ever. I mean, it looked like it was hurting him.
He said it one more time. Word for word.
He's usually somebody who can talk off the cuff and be a little more folksy. That was very much a prepared statement, really.
He's got. I don't know, I hate to misspeak, 8, 10 kids, something like that?
No, he had 8, he lost the one daughter, he's got 7.
Children.
He's got a lot of grandkids.
He's got tons of You think that would be a no-brainer to come out and talk against that? I'm kind of surprised, a little disappointed.
And this is an interesting issue because it's a bungle, but it's more than that because there are human lives involved and 2,000 kids who are separated from their families. So, I mean, we're seeing it with a lot of Republicans that doesn't matter what they want to do as far as politics goes, they're seeing kids not with their families, and we saw with Senator Portman that even he had to come out against it.
Trump would seem to have crossed a line with this one, and I think that's why you saw him reverse his position, which I think is the first time we've seen him do that.
It's the first time he's caved.
And to give credit to the first ladies, several of them Republican, current or past.
Her ambiguous jacket,
several of them Democrats, current.
I know, but I
think they're split, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, just to be fair.
I know, but this is a divisive issue because it's more simple than just the southern border, because there's a lot of people that say, why don't we let everybody into America that's in a country that's suffering economically? And whether from Central America, Africa, the Middle East, there's billions of people, and It's a struggle in Europe to figure it out. It's a struggle here.
But the issue here is focused to me squarely on, do you separate children from their parents? Not on our immigration policy. So, I mean, that's part of the bigger debate. But the issue that caused so much concern was strictly on separating children from their families, from their moms, from their dads, and that should be an easy one.
And the thing that's tough here is that it seems like the Trump administration wasn't even prepared for this kind of question. But when you talk to other people who've been dealing with immigration reform, they seem to have this as an institutional knowledge. We want immigration reform, but we've always had a stance to not separate families. So for a lot of people, it seems like they know that this is an issue that can come up.
But I think they were using it as a deterrent and miscalculated its impact from an optical standpoint.
Yeah, they said they were using it
I think
as a
that might be
deterrent.
Right.
The chief of staff told that to CNN and then to NPR.
And in all honesty, both sides have used this. I mean, the Democrats, they had 2 years with Obama as president and huge control of the House and Senate, and they never did immigration reform that they promised during the 2008
They did
campaign.
Obamacare.
Well, but they could have done, they had the numbers.
Let's
They
talk
could-
about that now.
Shouldn't immigration reform be fairly easy if you kept it narrow? Okay, we'll help out the dreamers, the kids who were brought here as kids, and so the Democrats get that. You give them a few $1 billion for the wall, and we're good. Why can't that get done?
Because there's more to the issue than that.
I know there's more to it, but baby steps.
Well, but see, there's people that say if you give in the baby steps, one side or the other loses the leverage in the argument. So
That's
there's,
exactly right.
So there's politics in politics.
But we have an
There's no
amateur
room
at
for
the wheel.
sensibility
We don't
right
have a
now.
politician at the wheel who knows how to cut deals and knows how things work. We have an amateur, and he doesn't know what he's doing.
So you'd rather have a slick politician that talks out of both sides of
Hey,
their mouth?
we get things done.